American experience, the US experience to vanilla ice cream, right? Like, who doesn't like vanilla ice cream? Everyone loves vanilla ice cream, right? And if you have a hankering for vanilla ice cream, you'll probably love vanilla ice cream, okay? But it's vanilla ice cream. There is always a reason to not leave the US, right? Two is what is the age and what is the portfolio, or what is the corpus that you need? So obviously, if you're retiring at 30, and so I came up with a multiplier, which was the WhatsApp culture and how everyone forwards videos all day long to you. That one of the most underrated parts of the move back to India, if you are moving back on a full-time basis, right?
Very solid advice. Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Desi Written. Today, I'm super excited to have Mr. Sumit on our show. Mr. Sumit went to US in 1990 and after living there for more than 30 years, he returned back to India last April in 2024. So I'm really excited to have this conversation with Mr. Sumit, who spent more than 3 decades in US and what brought him to India. How was the life in US? How is the life here, after spending a lot of time in another country and a lot more. With that, welcome to our show, Mr. Sumit, and glad to have you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity and really looking forward to it. And hope to be able to share a little bit of insight into my journey. So thank you for having me on the show.
That's great. So let's start a bit about your background and what made you to move to US initially.
Sure. So I was born in Kolkata. We have our ancestral family home here. So I was born in Kolkata. However, my dad was in the tea industry. So we grew up in Assam. And so we were in Lower Assam and Upper Assam. We were also in the Duars area. So, all of my time was spent there. However, back in the day, Assam really didn't have any good schools. Now I think Assam has a lot of schools, but back in the day, they really didn't have any schools. So what ended up happening was invariably the tea kids, we used to be called the tea kids, all the kids who grew up in tea, the parents would have to make a decision as to where to send them to school. And for the most part, back in the day, the place that everyone sent their kids to was in some hill station, right? So Dehradun or Darjeeling, it was boarding school, and that's kind of where the kids went. And for us, my dad decided in Darjeeling. So I spent essentially from the first grade all the way to the 12th grade in Darjeeling. I did my schooling there. So, we'd spend 9 months there in school. And then as the winters came, we'd come back to Assam just because it was so cold. There's no heating, right? So that's kind of how it went. And obviously, through the years, I would always stop by in Kolkata because my grandparents were here at that time. And so after I finished my 12th, it was a question of what do you do next? And in those days, there was this huge glut of people kind of going to the US, whether it's to further their education or whether it's to further their career, whatever it is. And if you were, halfway decent in academics, that was kind of what you did. So that's what transpired for me. I decided to go to the US. Not necessarily because I wanted to, but my brother was already there. He was 4 years older than me, so he was already there. And my parents felt like, well, I mean, the elder son is there, the younger son is about to go too. So I just kind of did that. I followed in his footsteps, and that's how it starts. I mean, I go in 1990, and 34 years later, now it's 35. I'm back here. So that's kind of the short of it.
Got it. So how was the life in US? I know you went at a very young age, and how was the life initially and how it evolved in the last 34 years in US?
Yeah, that's a great question. So obviously, I did my education in Georgia, at the University of Georgia. And then I went into, let's just call it a relatively non-traditional career path. In our time, kids that were going to the US were going to become a doctor or an engineer. Those were the kind of things, right? And later on, everyone was going to, some form of IT, software development, coding. Those have been standard kind of the lines that people from India go to. Mine was relatively non-traditional. I was not necessarily big into academics. I was more of a liberal arts kind of a guy. And so after college, I was really into hospitality too. And so I joined a hospitality company out of Atlanta. And for the next 15 years, I ran a pretty substantial portfolio of restaurants in the Atlanta/Charlotte areas in North Carolina. And so I did that for 15 years. I then went on to doing some consulting, specifically in the hospitality sector. And I did that for 7 years in Chicago. And then 2 years I spent in a country called Belize. It's a small Central American country where I spent a couple of years. And that was primarily in the call center industry. I actually opened a pretty large call center from ground up, from generating the leads, the construction, the whole 9 yards, the hiring of the folks, training, development, mentoring, and kind of getting it off the ground. It's a 2-year project there that I spent in Belize. And then the last 10 years I was in Dallas. And in Dallas, I was in the facilities industry, in the facilities management industry. And so we had some large Fortune 500 companies, one of which was my client for those 10 years. So, 4 jobs in 30 years, if you want to call it, relatively stable, I would say, non-traditional. The experience was great. I think I really enjoyed my time in the US. The education, of course, was very good. It was very solid. The work, I think, the big advantage in the US is things are very organized, they're very structured, they're very disciplined. So you learn that, right? You learn how to conduct yourself and comport yourself professionally. You learn interpersonal skills, the soft skills. So I learned a lot, met a lot of really, really talented people. I really enjoyed it. So I enjoyed my time there. I think what started to kind of get to me towards the end, it's kind of probably one of the reasons that I ended up moving back, was I think what happens is, as you climb in your career and you get a little bit higher up, the corporate side tends to become really political. And so there's a lot of administrative work, there's a lot of HR related work, and you're spending less time on what you like to do and more time on these kind of administrative things. And you have to make some hard decisions, terminating people that you necessarily don't want to terminate because of bottom line requirements. So as you go up, those things kind of start weighing on you a little bit. And you want to kind of get away from that, right? So I think I had a great time. I learned a lot. Very, very positive experience in the US. But yeah, I think overall it was a positive experience. Obviously, certain challenges like you would have anywhere.
No, thanks a lot for sharing that overview of your journey. So sounds like, I think, very successful career. Life is good, as you said. So why the thought of India? For how long has that thought been going on, and why the move in 2024?
Honestly, I think I pretty much always wanted to move back. It was always kind of in the back of my mind. And looking back retrospectively, I don't even think I really wanted to go to the US. I just went because kind of it was a family thing. My brother was there, all the kids were going, so I said, okay, I might as well go as well. So I just went, and things worked out. But I always, in the back of my mind, kind of wanted to come back, and there was something about the U.S. And once again, I stress it was a very, very positive experience. But I was never really, call it intellectually, spiritually, morally, really stimulated, right? I found it quite boring. And I equate the American experience, the US experience, to vanilla ice cream, right? Like, who doesn't like vanilla ice cream? Everyone loves vanilla ice cream, right? And if you have a hankering for vanilla ice cream, you'll probably love vanilla ice cream, okay? But it's vanilla ice cream, okay? There's nothing special about it. It's predictable. So that was one thing that I found a vacuum. I was just never really stimulated. So in the back of my mind, I always kind of wanted to come back. And then, it started out back here, and then every subsequent year it started coming a little bit further and a little bit further ahead. And what really kind of tipped it over the edge was COVID. When COVID hit, and I have older parents. My dad is almost 90. He's going to turn 90 in August. My mom is almost 80. Well, she is 80 now. So when COVID hit, and obviously that was devastating pretty much all over the world, but even more so here, especially among older people, and somehow or the other, my parents survived. Like, they didn't get, a single COVID issue. My brother actually came, and he ended up getting COVID, but my parents never did. So when my parents survived, and everyone around them, in our neighborhood and some family and friends, when they started passing away, it really made me consciously think of spending time with them. How many every years they have. I wanted to come back and spend time with them, and this kind of gave me the impetus to make the move. We also have a house. We have tenants. There's work. It's difficult for my dad, who's now 90, to take care of all of those things. There's some responsibilities. So I really kind of put that into motion. And it's very difficult to leave the US, in the sense that there is always a reason to not leave the US, right? It's whether it's a personal thing, whether it's a professional thing, there's always a reason. But once COVID happened, I said, okay, I am going to now put this on turbo and figure out a way to go back. And so, I drew a date. I said, okay, this is going to be the date. Obviously, there are financial considerations. You want to get to a certain amount, a certain nest egg. And I said, once I hit that, on that date, I'm done. And so it was a hard call, but honestly, I just couldn't be happier. It's the best thing that's ever happened to me. Certainly the best thing that's happened in a long time.
Got it. Understood. So it's, I think, the realization and then making a conscious decision to move and then just acting on it. So I think you kind of gave an indication, right? So you had a specific date in mind and then kind of working out, which is a nice segue into the preparedness. Maybe you can talk about some of the planning that you have done. I think you kind of mentioned about certain corpus amount, certain things that has to be taken care. I know, especially for someone who was living in US for 30 plus years, right? So can you shed some of the light in terms of your preparation for moving to India?
Yeah, so for me, it was actually relatively simple. So I'm divorced. I don't have a wife, and I don't have kids. I did have a child who was born with a lot of complications, and we lost him at a very early age. So I don't have a wife, and I don't have kids. So for me, it was just a question of making the decision of liquidating what I have there in terms of physical assets, right? So houses and cars and things like that. And so that's one side of the business. And on the other side is the actual financial planning. So the actual liquidation of the assets was relatively simple. Sold the house, gave away a bunch of things. because I was not coming back. I was not going to be one of those guys that's coming back either A, with a job, or B, with a bunch of stuff, right? I didn't want to do that. So that was relatively simple, just a liquidation of things. And then on the financial side, I think this is pretty interesting in the sense that, you can go down a rabbit hole here that you can never get out of it, because you can start trying to itemize things and what is it going to cost, and I've seen so much stuff on YouTube. There's so much information out there that you could just get wrapped up in the details, right? And you can't see the forest from the trees. But for me, it was actually relatively simple. I mean, I looked at it and I said, okay, so there are really three things here that matter. A is what city are you going to be moving to, right? So obviously, moving to Mumbai versus moving to Kolkata is different cost of living. So that's one. Two is what is the age and what is the portfolio, or what is the corpus that you need. So obviously, if you're retiring at 30, you're going to need a significantly larger corpus than if you're retiring at 50. So I'm retiring at 53. So I'm retiring at 53. I'm moving to Kolkata. And then, what are your expenses, right? Do you have kids? If you have kids, how old are they? How long are you going to have to pay for the education, school, college? And then probably the biggest thing is, what is your lifestyle going to be?
Yeah.
Right. So what are your expenses going to be? I think that's important. So for me, it was actually, 53. I'm moving to Kolkata, where I have a family home, and I want to live comfortably, but I don't want to live ostentatiously. I'm not going to just spend money for the sake of spending money, but I want to live comfortably. I want to be able to make trips, a couple trips domestically a year. I want to make an international trip, if not every year, certainly every other year. And so I came up with a multiplier, which was essentially 45 times my annual expenses. That's the math that I came up with. At 53, if I have 45 times my annual expenses, that's enough to cover me comfortably, all the way through. The other thing is that I have my investments in the U.S. and in very, very simple kind of index mutual funds. And in the U.S., the S&P, as we call it, the S&P has historically, since its inception, it's returned about 10.5% a year. And inflation adjusted, it's about 6.5%. So it's about 6.5% real. Now, people will say, well, but that's not good enough, because the inflation in India, living in India, and the inflation is higher. So inflation is high. True. But historically also, the US dollar has significantly appreciated over the Indian rupee, right? It has its ups and downs. So it kind of offsets it. So I think all said and done, you're still getting about 6.5%, 7% pretty consistently. And at 45 times, I thought that was plenty to kind of get me through. So those were the things. First was kind of liquidation of actual assets. Obviously, there's the banking side, you have to set all that stuff up. But yeah, once I came up with the number, I got there, I said it's time to move.
Yeah, makes sense. So thanks a lot for sharing details about the corpus. I think the 45x, as you mentioned, it's a super conservative, right? I think, just to make sure that you have enough buffer, and perfectly makes sense. So how was the experience of the life in India? I mean, for someone who spent majority of your life abroad, how is it like living in India now?
I love it. I love everything about India. I think specifically Kolkata. I love Kolkata. I kind of grew up here. My grandparents was here, so I have an emotional connection with the city. But yeah, I think I just love everything about India. I love the vibrancy. I love the dynamism. I love the culture. I love, the morning walks around the neighborhood, the evening walk. By the way, no one walks in the US, right? You can go through the entire city of Dallas, and if you see someone, you're questioning the sanity of the person. Like, why is the person walking? Here, everyone walks. So I just love the outdoorsy kind of thing. the informality, everyone is talking to everyone. People are just dropping by in the evenings. No one drops by in the evenings. Like in the US, someone picks up the phone and says, okay, are you free next Friday? Like that kind of stuff just doesn't happen here. It's just so much more informal and casual. And so I just love that. I also have very, very close friends. In fact, my core group of friends that I went to school with have done different things and gone different places, but they're all still here. They've come back. So my core group of boys that I grew up with in school are still here. So my closest friends are here. And, we meet once a week, sometimes twice a week. So it's been great. I think, obviously, there are expectations that maybe we can talk about, things that have been a little bit difficult, things that have been pretty easy and seamless. But I love it. I just love how casual life is, how relaxed everyone is, especially coming from the rat race in the US, which is the rat race. I mean, it's a treadmill of life in the US. It's very, very difficult to get off that treadmill. But yeah, I just love everything about India.
That's fantastic. So again, I think going back to this, like someone spending 3 decades abroad, right? 30 plus years. What are some of the things that surprised you, like in a positive way and negative way after the move?
Yeah, so interesting. A couple of positive things that have absolutely blown me away are more so in the technology space. I am just amazed at the fintech sector, specifically UPI. The ability to pay for a 10 rupee cup of tea to the local vendor outside my house, all the way up to buying a car via your cell phone without ever taking out cash, without ever taking out a credit card, is absolutely unbelievable to me. This cashless, this credit cardless system is unparalleled. In the US, we have something like it, Apple Pay, but Apple Pay is certainly not utilized everywhere. Not everyone accepts it. So you're always pulling out a credit card, or you're pulling out cash, or you're swiping, or something like that. So the whole UPI sector is just absolutely amazing. How this has occurred in India, how essentially money's come a little bit overground, and every little vendor, the guy selling fish, the guy selling tea, everyone takes UPI. I think that is just absolutely spectacular. The second thing that has absolutely kind of, put me over the top is this instant delivery of products. The Blinkit, this culture of being able to get things so quickly is just amazing to me. My parents, obviously, before I came, they didn't use any of this stuff, right? They didn't use UPI. They didn't know anything about Blinkit, and I kind of got them onto it. But it has transformed the shopping experience. It's made life so much more convenient, specifically in India, where pretty much everything is a little inconvenient. Like, it's not easy to get things done. But here, you order whatever it is you need in 10 minutes, sometimes less than that. It's here in like 5 minutes. Those two things is just amazing. That my mom, the girl that's working in the house says, oh, we need something, we need onions, or we need potatoes, and she Blinkits it in 5 minutes here. I'm amazed. I mean, I have Amazon Prime in the US, and that takes like a day of 36 hours to come, right? So I think those two things have just blown me away. UPI is just great, and this instant delivery of products. On the negative side, I don't think I've really encountered anything negative. I will say this. Okay, so this might get me into a little bit of trouble, but I'm going to go ahead and say it. Okay, a couple of things here that are interesting and kind of bother me in the first place. So one is the WhatsApp culture and how everyone forwards videos all day long to you. I get 100 of these videos from some, whether it's a political video, now it's India, Pakistan, before that it's cricket, something like all day. And you might be on multiple groups. And so your mom sends it to you, and then she forwards it to the same WhatsApp group. Now you get it twice. And then this whole culture of sharing is like we're all watching the same cricket match. We're all watching the same India-Pakistan thing. I don't need like 500 of these things showing up on my WhatsApp. Like, okay, so that's one. Put the hell aside. That drives me crazy. So I've actually like told people, guys, I hate to say it, I just don't watch this stuff. So please don't send it. Okay, so I have to do it. So that's one. And the second thing is the news here, right? The television news. Everyone on the news is screaming and yelling, okay? The anchor is screaming. He'll have a panel of 7 or 8 people. They're all screaming. I don't know what to hear. I don't know what to listen to. So the minute those guys come on, and by the way, my dad listens to all of this stuff. So this is running like nonstop, okay? And all of these channels have these highly provocative guys, over-the-top personalities, very loud and abrasive. So he's listening to this all the time. The minute that stuff comes on, I just put on my earbuds. I'm done. I'm out. So the WhatsApp culture of forwarding videos, the notifications, I had to silence the minute I came to India to silence all the notifications. That was driving me bananas. That and the news. Everyone is screaming at everyone. I don't know why they're screaming, but they're all screaming. And I guess they're all screaming because, for the most part, that's what the customer wants to see. I guess they like that. They like that kind of stuff. And, the survey said, do that. If you're just going to sit and deliver the news, you're not going to be popular. So I'm good with that. I just put my earpods on and I'm good. So, a couple of really good things on the technology side and a couple of things that not big in the grand scheme of things. And I found ways around it. So yeah. I'm good. So I think those are a couple of things.
Wow. Definitely some interesting perspectives there for sure. So just want to check in on, I think one of the reasons that you moved is to be with the parents, right? I think, spending some time and all that stuff. So how is that going? How are they enjoying it? And how are you, enjoying it? And some of the, especially in the last 1 year, anything that you can share from your journey thus far?
Yeah. So, they're doing great. Touch wood. My dad, who, by the way, is turning 90, says, my coming back has given him 10 years more of life. I go, okay, it's gonna be 100. Okay? So that's great. They're doing very well. He's in great health. My mom is overall in great health. She has some arm issues, but cognitively they're they're very solid and quite active. The move back, I think, has been a help for them. More so for probably my mom, in the sense that she takes care of the house. She's taken care of the house all these years. And anytime my dad would go out, if he'd go to the bazaar or something like that, she'd be pacing. She knows that him to the bazaar and back is like 45 minutes. So on the 46th minute, she's going to be standing outside, looking out the thing, looking out and seeing where is he coming. Now, she might give him a couple of minutes. In the 47th minute, if he's not here, she's going to call him. And if he doesn't pick up the phone, now she's panicking. Okay, so now this has been allayed because I go to the bazaar with my dad. I don't let him go anywhere. He's still driving, by the way. He's 89 years old. He's turning 90, and he's still driving around. I've had to reduce the perimeter of his driving. So now it's just kind of Salt Lake to airport and back this side, and nothing at night. But now I'm going with him everywhere. And so, yeah, I think it's been very helpful. And with the degradation of my mom's arm, it's been difficult for her to lift up things. So I'm helping around the house. And I think, my being here obviously has given them some strength. Yeah. Not just in the house, but also companionship and being here. And it was important to me. I really wanted to spend time with them. I think I've been able to do that. I've been able to balance it a little bit. I have my own time. I kind of go out with my friends a little bit. And I use kind of a variation of the 80-20 rule. The 80-20 rule basically says that, 20% of people do 80% of the work. Well, I use a variant of this. I spend 80% of my time at home and 20% of my time with my friends. So that's the 80-20 rule for me. I think it's been great for me. Very, very satisfying, very cleansing, kind of cathartic for me. And my parents seem to be enjoying it too.
That's fantastic. Great to hear. And thanks for sharing that. So to wrap it up, like any advice for the people who are considering to moving to India, like what would be your advice and how should they approach it?
One is you have to understand that one of the most underrated parts of the move back to India, if you are moving back on a full-time basis, right, is the importance of a social network. I think this is highly underrated. If you are a person that is moving back to India after 20 years, and you just decide because of whatever reasons, financial, so on and so forth, that I'm moving to Bangalore, Kolkata, and you don't have a built-in social network, whether it's friends, whether it's family, it's going to be very difficult for you. You're going to get bored, and very quickly, and B, you are going to struggle to make friends. Specifically at my age, at 53, it's very difficult to make new friends, right? And the friends that you make are going to be more acquaintances. The relationships are going to be a lot more cosmetic. So I think you really need to take that into account. How is the social network for you? Do you have friends? Are they busy with their own lives? What's their situation? How are you going to be able to adjust to that? I think that's very, very underrated. I think, two, is have realistic expectations. You're moving to India. The reason for disappointment in life is because we have expectations, right? We plan, and we're all excited, and we're jazzed up about going to Paris. And so for 6 months, we were thinking about Paris and Eiffel Tower and Parisian food and all this kind of stuff. And you go to Paris and you're like, okay, it's not all that it's cracked up to be. Well, it's not all that it's cracked up to be because you build this up in your head that this is what your expectations are, right? You're moving to India, have realistic expectations. I have, in fact, for all experiences, I have almost no expectations or very low expectations. I'm very rarely disappointed. So understand, right? I mean, for a person on the outside looking in, they're like, a lot of them will say this. They'll say, oh, but life in India is so easy. You can have help, and you can get stuff delivered, and you don't have to cook, and you don't have to clean. And so they have this kind of romantic idea, and those are all true, but it's not that easy. Okay, life in India is not as easy as people make it out to be, specifically for someone who's coming back. So have expectations that are real. Like, don't have unrealistic expectations. If you think that you can come and a phone call to the bank takes care of all your banking concerns, that doesn't occur. Okay, so have realistic expectations. And the third thing I would say is understand the financial side of things. Right? Don't complicate it. Don't let that stand in the way of your move back. But be comfortable and live comfortably. You don't have to be living over the top, but kind of spend some time there and understand it. And I think if you have a good social network, you're pretty solid on the financial side, and your expectations are real and realistic, I think the move back is going to be fine. I don't think you're going to really struggle.
No, very solid advice. A lot of important points to take away. Really appreciate you kind of distilling it into those three things. Thanks a lot. So I think to wrap up the session, I think, we have like this rapid session where we would ask the questions and you can keep the answers short. So the first one is, what's one thing you wish you knew before moving to India?
I think overall I was pretty well prepared, but I will say one thing that kind of surprised me, not that I didn't know it, but I didn't think it was going to be such an issue, is that nothing in India gets accomplished on the phone. Like nothing, okay? You call someone, they don't pick up. If I'm talking about businesses, I'm not talking about people, I'm talking about businesses, right? You call the business, they don't pick up. If they pick up, they say you got to come to the store. So nothing occurs on the phone. In the US, whether it's, the DMV or, the bank or your financial institution, you pick up the phone, you talk to someone, they'll say, okay, go to this website here, they walk you through a few steps, everything is done. Here, you have to physically go to a brick and mortar location, whether it's the post office, the bank, the driver's license, it doesn't matter what it is, right? So nothing gets accomplished on the phone. So for anyone who's looking to move back to India, remember that you have to go someplace to get something done. Almost nothing happens on the phone.
Yeah, got it. And so what's one habit NRI should develop before moving to India from your perspective?
Patience. I think you just have to be patient. Things just move slower here. And things just move at the pace that they move. India's not going to change for you. You're going to have to change for India. Initially, I think, you get a little bit of culture shock. You go to the local, and I went to, my dad has his pension in some LIC office, and you walk into the LIC office, and you see, floor to ceiling files, like paper files. And you're thinking to yourself, okay, there's got to be a better way to do this. Digitize it. Where are the computers? There's only like 4 or 5 computers. Crores and crores of money sitting here, like 4 or 5 computers. But that's just the way it is. That's the way it works in India. You just have to be patient. So if you're one of those people that's, super regimented and disciplined, and I'm going to do this at 8 o'clock, and I'm going to be at this place by 9:02. You're going to have to slow down. Like, have patience here. Things just does not happen on that kind of a routine.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I think you need to have the patience to have things, make it happen in India, for sure. It moves at its own pace. So the last one, if you could sum up your experience in one word, the move back to India, what would it be?
Exhilarating. Absolutely exhilarating. It's, cleansing for me. I am also a passionate photographer, and so that's important to me. I've seen almost none of India. Even though I was born here, I've seen almost all of the US and a lot of the rest of the world, but almost none of India. It's always been just kind of Kolkata, Darjeeling, Assam, this kind of thing. And so I've wanted to visit the rest of the country, photograph festivals, and the great landscapes. So really, in this past year, outside of going to Darjeeling, I've been to Banaras, and I've got that whole experience, the religious experience of Banaras. I just came back actually about a month ago from Himachal, which is just another spectacular part. I mean, it's almost incomparable to anything that I've seen. Just the expanse of beauty is just unbelievable. So yeah, it's just been incredible. I mean, I got to spend, Durga Puja last year, which is a big thing. I've never been in Kolkata during Durga Puja. And me and my friends, last year, over 3.5 days, we saw 40 pujas, like 40. So it was like from 8 o'clock in the morning to 10 o'clock at night, 40 pujas. It was just amazing. And it was, so yeah, it's just been so good. It's been so colorful, just refreshing and pure experiences. It's been exhilarating.
No. So yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Sumit, for a wonderful conversation. I really enjoyed a lot of nuggets, I think, for people who are considering to move to India that they can take from our discussion today. And I really appreciate and thank you very much for taking the time and sharing your journey with us.
Thank you very much, Avinash. It was great. And I hope your channel continues to grow. I've gone through some of your content. It's very good. And hopefully a few things that I went over help some of the folks in the future, and wishing everyone the best. Even if you're not looking to move back, this content might be interesting to you. So wishing everyone the best. Avinash, thank you for having me on.
No, Fantastic.